Let's war rolling at the start. We here to bring the truth. Jar open this podcast. We breaking through the fake news. They try to silence us, but we will be subdued. We're bearded alpha males here to save the youth. Spitting fire on the mic with the bass Christian takes. Exposing the lies, keeping the demons at bay. We ain't afraid to speak up. We won't be swayed. Jar open this podcast where the truth is laid. Jar openers, cracking open the lies. We're rolling Atlas up. We're here to rise. Bearded alpha males saving the youth from the godless demons, spreading the truth. We ain't playing games, we're on a mission to awaken the masses with our intuition. Pulling out the corruption with no inhibition. Jar open this podcast, sparking a revolution. We're not afraid to stand tall in a world full of deceit. We're the voice of reason, bringing light to the street. Keeping it real, never missing a beat. Jar open this podcast where the truth meets the heat. Jar openers, cracking open the lies. We're rolling Atlas up, we're here to rise. Bearded alpha males saving the youth from the godless demons, spreading the truth. Jar open this podcast where the truth will never cease. Join us on the journey to bring back peace. We're rolling Atlas up, fearless in our release. Jar open this podcast where the lies will decrease.
All right. What's up? What's up? I zoom in. My camera's off to the side. You know, just always. But what's up, JB? Making fun of us for being on time. Well, we're still a minute late. We're maybe 30 seconds late.
Yeah, wasn't that bad compared to sometimes.
Yeah, that's for sure. What's up, Dirty Money? What's up, Evil Elmo? Chris, Jamie, good to see everybody. We have kind of a slow news day, to be honest with you, but we have a few topics that we're going to get into. Namely, the Pope had passed away. I guess it was early this morning. So it wasn't necessarily on Easter. Some folks were saying that he was doing everything he can to like make it through Easter or last or whatever, but I don't know. Get into that story a little bit. Triggering, you know, anytime the Pope passes away, which has happened a couple of times in my adult life, I believe. I remember the last one at least. You know, we get into the prophecies and things like that. And so we'll talk about a couple of those, one particular. And then what else we got going on here? We got the SignalGate story, 2.0 this time. So we'll delve into that. I don't know. I guess they still are using Signal in Trump's cabinet. I guess it's legal, but I don't know. We'll find out more. Shannon Sharpe is being sued for $50 million, and I'm wondering if this is a Me Too thing or what's going on. And then just before the show, I saw that there was an article posted from a furious Shannon Sharpe who names his accuser and then goes on a nice little tirade. So we'll dig into that a little bit. We get his reaction. It's typically not what we see in these cases. Usually the accused kind of shuts up and lawyers up, right? But that's not Shannon Sharpe this time, so that should be an interesting little deep dive. Keir Starmer may have had a gay affair. We'll look into that. Bill Maher hosted Charlie Kirk on his Club Random show, and you know, it's my first thought on that is the same thing I've been talking about ever since Gavin Newsom opened his podcast and hosted Charlie Kirk. And it's that, you know, why are these conservative dudes going over to these other, you know, liberal platforms, these people that we know hate us, we know hate them. I know, you know, some people will say that they should be having these conversations and be open to having the conversations, but to me, it's about platforming and lending your clout to these other people. And I don't know, maybe Bill Maher is willing to have a more genuine conversation post his visit to the White House and learning more about Donald Trump, you know, one-on-one situation. But I don't know. That's yet to be determined, I guess, and only time will tell. But we'll dig into that story a little bit. What else we got here? Cam Higbee interviews Phil Turney on the USS Liberty. And was it which one of those dudes is the sole survivor?
Phil Turney. Phil Turney's the survivor, and
Phil
Cam
Turney?
Bigby is the conservative pundit.
Okay, sorry, I don't know it. I don't know these guys' names, so I apologize. But yeah, Phil Turney, the sole survivor. So that was pretty interesting. And then we have Candace Owens and Matt Walsh drama, and there's a back and forth going on between them over Candace Owens' takes on NASA. I think is what kind of started it, but we'll dig into that a little bit and just generally have fun. Let's see here. Let's see. Dirty Money mentions that they're using SignalGate to divert them from trying to get Mr. Garcia from El Salvador. Yeah, which is a whole nother story. I kind of was going to skip on that in the Carmelo Anthony today. We'll dig back into that one on Wednesday. Lots of updates, and I figure there'll be plenty more by then. So we're not going to abandon some of these stories that we've been following. We just kind of want to go down some new rabbit trails this time. What's up, Steve? Yeah, I hope everybody had a good Easter. It's good to see you. Let's see. Who else? Did I miss anybody? Oh, what's up? Just me. TNT. How you doing, buddy? Chris says the next Pope is going to be worse than this last one. TNT said, yup. Yeah, I think so too.
Pretty sure the two leading candidates, one's black and one's Asian. And I think the majority of the poll is going towards, I had their names earlier, but I saw a very staunch white nationalist on X say, I've never supported a black more. And I can't remember what the guy's name is, but apparently he's like the more conservative, like, based one out of the two. So who knows who's going to be selected.
Yeah. I saw an interview of this last Pope just this morning. It was talking about how the Catholic Church is no longer condemning gay marriage or something like that. And he was like, no, we can't personally, but I don't know. It was just more, it wasn't a clear, fine defined line like it's supposed to be. I thought it was interesting, but
yeah, Steve's spot on there. It's Cardinal Sarah. I can't remember what his full name is, but that's who people are putting their weight behind, at least on the American side of who I see from a lot of the base Catholics in here. So that lines up with what I was also seeing on X.
Yeah, I haven't looked at any of these potential replacements or anything like that. I don't know a whole lot about the Catholic religion, to be honest with you. I never really been raised Catholic or anything. I wasn't raised Catholic, and when I found God, I was in the Baptist church, so never gone down that alley.
Right. Me either. I actually know the least about Catholicism.
Excuse me.
Cardinal Robert Sarah, thank you, but he won't get elected in his opinion. Pray he does. I'll go find that. Actually, I'm curious who he's running against. Somebody made a good graphic of it earlier.
Yeah, Evil Elmo says hoping the Catholics elect a Catholic as a pope this time.
I'm trying to find out who that secondary person was. Now my timeline's all this Pope Sarah, which he's got some good quotes here too. Like the one that he's got here at the very top, it's got like almost 1 million views on it.
JB cracking me up. I need to buy more MREs.
It's funny. But his quote here says, gender ideology is a Luciferian refusal to receive a sexual nature from God. Oh, House posted it. I was going to say, dude, I swear I saw something earlier posted about that.
Was it in the Discord? Oh, yeah. Speaking of the Discord, Gunther Eagleman apparently has joined the Discord. Somebody by the name. I doubt it's the real dude, but we do have a Discord link that y'all are welcome to join, or a Discord that y'all are welcome to join. The link is down in the description on the YouTube side. And of course, what's up to everybody over there on X?
What I will say, I literally know nothing about the selection process in Catholicism. So I will say that But yeah, from Guinea. Who's the American guy? Didn't someone say there's an American cardinal that has a chance?
I'm not sure, to be honest with you.
Raymond Burke.
Okay. Hey, what's up, Andrea? Let's see. Yeah. Well,
Interesting.
let's just go ahead and start pulling stuff up here.
Yeah, but I mean, this is kind of like the main story that's obviously taken the news cycle by storm. You have, well, part of it's being memed, but there's a lot of different paths I think you can take with this story as well. One, obviously, I think there's some clear Christian principles I think being violated just in existence of this issue. I'll expand on that in a second, but the larger issue is obviously Pope Francis has passed. Everyone was basically waiting for this to happen. He had an earlier incident, which I believe was his lungs. He struggled for like a good portion of time. I think he lost a portion of one of his lungs, actually trying to recover from whatever respiratory condition that he had. But secondly, I think the last photo ever taken of Pope Francis was with JD Vance. And people, Babylon Bee are even making like, the news story headlines, the funny ones, the satire lines of, Dalai Lama canceled his meeting with JD Vance ahead of, whatever, because people are poking fun that JD Vance, is the reason why the Pope passed, which is like a meme and it's kind of funny. But the second thing is, this prophecy thing that I've seen people talk about, including Worrell, which I myself am not privy to at all. But supposedly that, this next one will be like the last one in some kind of like very old or an ancient prophecy. But secondly, one thing I would highlight too is obviously any incident like this happens, it becomes open season for all the people who never liked him anyways. And that's when you get a lot of individuals who are saying things like about time and good riddance. I've even saw earlier a comment that was highlighted from Mark Lobliner by 9mm SMG that was saying that he prays that the Pope is actually burning in hell, which I think is a bit aggressive, egregious, and outright. Obviously, I think as a Christian, you don't ever wish for anyone to burn in hell. I think that's outside the bounds of what you would actually aspire for as a Christian. As much as you may despise somebody, you hope for their salvation in the life thereafter. Doesn't mean that you hope for their salvation in this life. Obviously, if they did do terrible things, there is a natural rule of law, and justice should be held. But there are I see a lot of that floating around, which I think, put in context, I think is it reminds me of how we have very little defense mechanism as Christians. If this were the shoe on the other foot, you would see people being like, wow, all these people really hate Muslims. Wow, all of these people must be anti-Semitic. But then when it happens to Catholics, everyone jumps in and no one gives a shit. And so I kind of see a little bit of that too, which just reminds me overall, there is very zero kind of social pressures to not be anti-Christian. Everybody else is like, are you sure you want to say that? And not to say that, not to defend everything Pope Francis has done, but just to outline a pretty basic kind of Christian tenet, as well as just the weakness of where Christianity is at today. I mean, everyone can kind of poke fun at us. Laura Loomer had made a post earlier today, which was like a rainbow cloud coming out of the Catholic Church, which is, there's fair criticisms to be there, and I agree with them. But I think the overall nature of not having a defense mechanism for everybody to have open season on Christians is one thing. But obviously, this implies who's going to be the next pope. And so I think that's what we're kind of going to be looking at in the coming weeks with the news cycle, as all the different, the cardinals who may be eligible or maybe top contenders will probably be walking into the news cycle. I'm sure we might have a couple, as they say, October surprises as well. It'll be like this pope from here wants to go run. And it's like, oh, well, you remember this video from 2011? We're probably going to get a lot of that as it pertains to the pope. But overall, just unfortunate it did happen on Easter weekend, right? On a very, very good day. He just tried to make it to the weekend. And like I said, I'm not sure exactly what time he had passed. But it was ultimately, the cause of death was a stroke. I think they said it was a cerebral stroke, and that that put him in a coma, and the coma led to heart failure and one thing after another. And then he is gone. But that's kind of the gist of the story, what we're looking at with the Pope.
Well, it says right here that the pontiff passed away peacefully at the St. Martha residence in the Vatican. According to his doctors, he reportedly woke up when his alarm went off at 6 a.m., fell ill at 7 a.m., and died from a stroke at 7:35 a.m. And these were all local times. I believe that the East Coast in the U.S. was like I think it was 1:35 a.m. So that was this morning. Let's see.
Yeah.
But he had been sick for a week or a month. I mean, from what I understand, I thought it said a little bit more detail about it here, but I've been reading so much. Maybe that was a post on X, but yeah, apparently he had been sick for like a month and developed pneumonia, and then it was just downhill from there for a guy that was 88 years old. That's not a good recipe.
Yeah, I couldn't remember if it said like he had struggled in like almost like close to critical condition for 38 days or like 38 weeks. But I do know it was pretty not openly public, but everyone had known that he was clearly not in the best of health and that it was a matter of time. So I think this was like, it's not shocking to anybody. He was 88 years old. And as Steve had just commented there, he kind of already went a little bit past his life expectancy anyways. But again, I think, with every person that's in a position of that, they're obviously going to be open to criticism. I guess the main takeaway I got from it, from seeing all the stories, was just how quick everybody was ready to call like all these Catholics evil. And it was kind of like, open season. And I just think, for a show that's kind of garnered around the idea of bringing back, Christian nationalism, Christian populism, whatever word you want to use in there,
Right.
it's just not a good sign and not a good optic of like the internal ongoings of the Christian faith here in America. Obviously we know that, like we're in a very, very weak state. I mean, a lot of what Christianity is in the Protestant sense is very far removed from God. But it was just a dark reminder of like, that's why we're in this position again, is because we don't have good or even adequate or meaningful comparable social pressures like every other group has, whether it's blacks or whether it's Israelis or whether it's, insert whatever group. It's always seemingly like Christianity is just the easiest, and you'll get zero social blowback if you just sit there and dump on one of the biggest Christian leaders in the entire world. And I would say he probably is. I mean, he is the Pope, the singular executive ruler compared to a lot of these other, whether it's Orthodoxy or Protestantism. And that, it just deeply saddens me, because I think not only is Christianity a religion of persecution, that's part of like what defines it too, like the martyrdom of the disciples, right? Nobody dies for a lie, the famous words from Mel Gibson as he was, producing the Passion of the Christ, the first one. It just, until we can kind of get back to where we were, right, early in the days, you think about how much power the church did have at once, right, where they would have enough social pressure, they could pressure Hollywood movies from not being published because they would be too graphic or too vulgar on certain grounds, or maybe too obscene in just one maybe esoteric manner. We just don't have that anymore. It's just entirely gone. And instead, while Christians just get pushed around, beat up, and dumped on by even everyone's favorite conservative pundits, you have to tiptoe and walk around eggshells when it comes to Islam or it comes to Judaism. And that's just one thing that, like, I desperately want to change. And I wish at a certain point, we as the men who hold the faith of Christianity begin to get a backbone and say, get this anti-Christian shit out of here. We sit here and put up with all of you other like disgusting indie, weird demonic beliefs, and we barely say anything outside we disagree with it. And then the Pope dies, and say you're not a Catholic, regardless, the Pope dies, and here as everyone's like, yeah, remember, I hate that fat MFer, I hope he's burning in hell. It's like, what the, can you imagine if like I said that about the other, like about Muhammad, or if I said that about anything remotely, closely linked with like the Jewish faith? Like, yeah, dude, I'd be getting canceled. Maybe my video wouldn't even get posted online on YouTube. So that's a social dynamic that has to change. Like, it must. And it's a reminder that even as we are split from the Orthodoxy to Catholicism to Protestantism, we have to find a way to link up again. The same way that the Crusades took place. Like, they had to put aside their differences and say, we might disagree on these things staunchly, but we're closer aligned than any other group of people on earth. And so that's just kind of my overall takes with it. And again, I'm taking Steve's stance here too, which is like, I'm not here to defend Pope Francis, but I'm here to defend the social fabric of how easy it is to take a dump on Christianity.
Right. And, when I mentioned that in the beginning, I saw a video of him being questioned about the church accepting gay marriage. It was right when I woke up, and I wish I would have kept it. I don't know where I saw it. I don't know if it was from X or if it was a text. I can't remember exactly, but he did deny it. But there was a certain kind of caveat to it. It wasn't necessarily that he approved. Dang it! I wish I had known it. Wish I would have kept that around so we could actually watch it.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that because what we're seeing in chat here too as well. I wasn't trying to say that he was actually approving of it. He actually said the contrary, that he doesn't approve of it, but there was something to it. I just can't remember the exact detail.
Yeah, he did have a lot of bad stances, right, as it related to like immigration, as it relates to. I think I do specifically remember the one that Chris is actually bringing up, and I can't remember who which religion that was about. It might have been about Islam, but I did find that to be a bit aggressive as well. Which was he had made similar comments to what Chris was saying there, which was basically that everybody kind of prays to the same God. And maybe I'm getting it wrong or misphrasing it, but it was something to that effect, which, I mean, anything even remotely close to that, I think is just a telltale sign of like, who's buttering your bread, right? It's like a matter of, you should be saying one thing as a Christian, but you're actually saying why, because you're also playing politics there as the Pope, as like a leader of the large movement, of the large faith there. But
right. I'm going to check my YouTube history and see if maybe it was a YouTube short. TNT asked if it was maybe something from Tim Pool, but no, it was a woman that was interviewing him. I don't think Tim Pool was playing it. Let me just see here.
No, you're good. I'm going to look up the one.
Tim Pool did put out a video on it. Maybe he played the clip of that interview during that video. I don't know. Maybe I'll scan through that video real fast, but I don't know. Kind of off the point, anyways. But we'll move on from that.
Okay, that's what it was. Okay, so as the Pope said that both Christians and Muslims worship the God of Abraham. But the clarification there is it says that he has never said that all or most people in the world worship the same God. So maybe there's a bit like of nuance there, which again, like I am no like theologian to parse the small, finite and precise different nuances that may be there, because that may be in a technical sense possibly true. But also I think what most people took from that, and maybe media, the way the media takes comments and runs with them, may have led to the effect that people came to the belief that he was saying something even more egregious than that.
Oh, sorry. I did find it. It was actually in a Tim Pool video. That's funny. TNT helped me out there. I'm gonna see if I can find it here.
Yeah, but yeah, TLDR, Christian has ass leadership, absolute dog donkey leadership. I mean,
right.
To summarize this more precisely.
Yeah, man. Okay. Let's see here. Give me 1 second. I'll find the spot. And then we'll play this little clip just because I brought it up.
Oh, it's from the 60-minute segment.
To allow Catholic priests to bless same-sex couples. That's a big change. Why?
No, what I allowed was not to bless the union. That cannot be done because that is not the sacrament. I cannot. The Lord made it that way. But to bless each person, yes. The blessing is for everyone. For everyone. To bless a homosexual type union, however, goes against the given right, against the law of the church. But to bless each person, why not? The blessing is for all. Some people.
Okay, so I think we get it with without running too much risk of getting copyright from 60 Minutes. We'll just leave it at that. Right. So he's basically saying he blesses the individuals, just not the union. And so, okay, that was the clarification that I was looking for, and I apologize it took me so long to find that. But
right, well, I guess like this is my point, right? You see how the tables are reversed, where all of this like negative out of context, like we have to go back and like literally see what he might have actually said, where you compare that with like if I just go on X and I like say like, well, maybe Islam's maybe a little bit different, but I think I'd still get comments where you'd get a flood of people coming in and be like, don't ever say anything bad about Islam. You get like the rabid like people, even probably bots coming in. And same thing with like with pretty much every other religion too. They come in and they get aggressively, they would defend it no matter what. Where this is the opposite way around, where the Pope is pretty much everywhere you look in the media is painted as like a very poor figure, even though the media doesn't even like Christianity, it goes out of its way to take an active dump on it anywhere you look. They also hold the Pope as if the media is Christian themselves. They're like, wow, look at what the Pope said that doesn't line up with the Christian faith. And they play both sides of it. So anything you see about him is negative press. And again, there's no way, again, one for the 8 millionth time to defend Pope Francis, but just to highlight just like how Christianity has zero institutional defense mechanism whatsoever. And even outside of the institutions, there's like almost zero, banding together group of people, an angry mob online that will defend them with their, in their cold dying grasp of the Pope either. So it's just something to point out there clearly just how weak the Christian faith is and how unwilling people are to defend it at large.
Definitely. So let's check out this article here from Daily Mail talking about the 1,000-year-old prophecy that predicts the next pope after Francis dies and issues a chilling warning for humanity. Let's see here. The Nostradamus. I'm sure everybody's heard of Nostradamus. He's probably the most famous prophet. I don't know. I hesitate really calling him a prophet, but predictor in history. People like to refer to Nostradamus about things. So, right. Nostradamus's eerie 16th century prediction about the Pope makes stark warning as 88-year-old pontiff dies. So, Pope Francis's sudden death has thrown the spotlight back in a 900-year-old. Excuse me, I'm going to start that over because it just felt retarded. Pope Francis' sudden death has thrown the spotlight back on a 900-year-old prophetic manuscript. And yeah, guys, forgive me. I'm still coming off the sickness. You guys can probably hear it in my voice, but I'm feeling much better than I was the last couple of days. And I'm tired of being sick the third time this year. It's ridiculous. But continuing, the 12th century prophet of the popes, reportedly uncovered in the Vatican's secret archives, claims to predict the identity of Francis's successor and even foretells the return of Christ. Before we get into this, I want to remind everybody that it does say that no man will know the time or day or minute of Christ's return in the Bible. So that's the stance that I take. But for entertainment purposes, we'll go ahead and delve into this a little bit. But the document contains a series of cryptic Latin phrases, each believed to describe a pope, starting with Celestine II in 1143 and ending with Peter the Roman in 2027. Okay, so that's fanning the flames in the eerie fact that there are currently 9 frontrunners to succeed Pope Francis, and 3 of them are named Peter. Okay, so the renewed interest has also reignited fears about one of the prophecy's more chilling predictions that Judgment Day is near. Many Christians believe that the year 2027 could mark the second coming of Christ, when Jesus is said to return to earth to judge the living and the dead. According to the prophecy, the fateful day is now less than 2 years away. Francis who had been battling respiratory issues for months, died Monday at age 88 of a suspected cerebral hemorrhage, type of stroke caused by bleeding in the brain. After a traditional 9-day mourning period, the Catholic Church will begin the process of choosing his successor, calling all cardinals from around the globe to Rome for the next conclave. Conclave? I don't know. Side note, I'm curious, is the next 9 days, is that when they burn the smoke? Is that when the smoke comes out of the Vatican? I remember last time there was something about smoke burning coming out of the Vatican for like a few days or whatever, and it was symbolic of some sort. And like I said, I don't know much about Catholicism. So I'm just kind of curious about that. If anybody knows.
Yeah, no idea.
Okay.
Literally
Maybe
zero idea about anything Catholic. I've tried to avoid it as much as possible, to be honest with you.
Right. Abigail says, yes, white smoke symbolizes the new pope being selected. Okay, thank you. Appreciate that, Abigail. The selection process, known as the papal conclave. I don't know. I don't like that word. Must start between 15 and 20 days after Francis's death. The cardinals under the age of 80 are eligible to vote. 2/3 majority is required to elect a new pope. Saint Malachi, I don't know. Malachi that I know is spelled with an I, but anyways, is credited with creating the prophecy of the popes, which features 112 short cryptic phrases that allegedly describe the future pope until Judgment Day. According to the final entry surrounding Peter the Roman, the last pope will preside over the church during a time of great turmoil, culminating in the destruction of Rome and the end of the papacy. In the final persecution of the Holy Roman Church, there will reign Peter the Roman, who will feed his flock amid many tribulations, after which the seven-hilled city will be destroyed, and the dreadful judge will judge the people. The end. The last passage of the book reads, while some incorrectly interpreted the prophecy as Peter the Roman taking over for Pope Francis during his recent hospitalizations, others believed Malachi was suggesting Francis himself would be the last pontiff. Over the years, biblical scholars have focused on the timeline surrounding these future popes and when they would lead the Catholic Church. Some believe the text proclaimed that it had reached its halfway point in 1585 after the first 442 years of predictions. This would make the final year of Malachi's prophecy in 2027. So, pretty interesting that people would
just interesting in general.
Go off of prophecy rather than scripture. You know what I mean? I know it's just kind of like entertaining to look into these type of things. We always, hear about the doomsday clock and things like that. And
right.
Let's see here.
Although I will say, as much as everybody can remember like the 2012 stuff, right? When I think a lot of people went off the rocker and were like, it's the end of the world, right? 2012 was an extremely symbolic number. It seems that, at least in my opinion, there has been an ever increasing discussion about how close we are to the end of times. And it seems like even people who aren't even remotely religious can even attest to the fact that, yeah, it's really bad. And I think overall, just like the nature of the degeneracy that we see and just the overall craziness, obviously with like the transgender stuff, I think really pushed it over the edge because it was such a blatant walk away from what is natural, what is just normal, even and normative, that you can't help but think, maybe there is more than it's more than just sentiment. Maybe there is just a general feeling in the intuition of people that goes, yeah, even if it's not in the sense of the world will end, I think the world may end in the sense that we are approaching a vastly unsustainable way of life, as we would call like the modern world. It doesn't mean like Jesus comes back or anything, but just to say like we might be feeling overall, it's just a marching towards the death of a modern society that cannot stand on any of its foundations anymore. And that just may be the crash of everything, right? The American empire falls, NATO falls, maybe China becomes a prominent power. They fill the void of all these nations kind of collapsing. And that could be overall the sentiment that people feel. And I think it's easy to feel that when you just take a look outside and you just see like the multiple tiers of justice that people have to go through, depending on like what you believe, what your skin color may be. And then you compare that to just like the brain rot that exists on what kids consume, like the iPad babies just consuming just hours and hours of stimulating brain rot. And then you see again with the transgenderism, the gender ideology, the extreme progressive left, it's clearly like, if that doesn't course correct, you're not going to have a nation anymore, or at least not a modern first world anymore. It's bound to go off the rails at some point.
Right. So just continuing, I'm going to finish up this story here at the end. It kind of sums it up. So while the book was found more than 400 years ago, its prophecy recently resurfaced when Francis suffered 2 episodes of respiratory crisis in February. As for Judgment Day, speculation regarding its impending arrival has intensified over the last year as Francis's health faded. A documentary released in 2024 focused on a passage attributed to Pope Sixtus the fifth, okay.
Yeah.
From 1518 that reads, Axel in the midst of a sign, supposedly marking the halfway point of Malachi's prophecy, Pope Sixtus it's weird, it's Sixtus the fifth, right? So it's like six. I don't know.
I mean, it's actually just a pretty sick name, to be honest, though.
Right. Sixtus the fifth led the church 442 years after the first leader mentioned by Malachi, and with the text suggesting he was in the middle of the prophecy. The end of the world would therefore come 442 years later in 2027, just 20 months after Francis's death. So, I mean, that's pretty interesting. Although, we've had plenty of prophecies in the past. Back to the Future predicted that we would have flying cars by 2015. And here we are 10 years later. And we're still not there yet. So that should tell you everything you need to know about predictions that come from anywhere from the Bible. That was a joke, by the way, about, but that was a joke mixed in with some reality. Okay, guys.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just found this was kind of interesting, right? And then I see this over here. So the interim pope is a man named Kevin from Dublin.
It's such a simple statement.
I don't know anything about it, but the title got me, so I clicked it.
Yeah. Well, and here's another thing too with this, right? Like, especially on the note of not knowing the day nor the hour, using that same logic is the reason why I am so staunchly a advocate for Christian nationalism and Christian populism. It is the opposite take of those Christians who say, well, with the world, all Jesus wins in the end, like might as well like not care about anything, or like where it's all going to end at some point, right? It's like that kind of mentality is a mentality that basically assumes that like the world ends soon. And it's like, you don't know. I mean, who's to say the world doesn't continue to exist for the next like 10 bajillion years? And you gave up in 2024. And we could be going on to 10 million AD or whatever. And it's just to say, too many Christians, I think, resort to that kind of mindset when they go, well, the reason why we shouldn't push for more of a Christian society is because it's like, well, like it all ends at some point, right? Or it's bound to end. He wins in the end. So what does it really matter? And I think I take the opposite approach. It's like, because we don't know when it ends, it's like why we should exceptionally pursue a more Christian society, one in which that would garner more individual souls towards salvation gates, instead of looking at the degenerate world that we're in and say, well, all's well as it ends well. Like I just don't think that's the right approach to things. especially when you look at it and it's clear, like, yeah, that's probably the same reason why we go look at prophecies, and it's like, of course he doesn't know that, dude, because it says himself from Jesus himself saying no one's going to know the day nor the hour. So you look at any prophecy that speaks on it and you immediately throw it out. You're like, oh, that right there, immediately, that right there is a complete counter statement to what Jesus himself said. Throw it away.
100%. And it should also discredit the rest of this prophet's, prophecies.
Right.
It's like, well, you guys know.
Right. But yeah, in the end, I think obviously Christian leadership sucks. I think Steve made a good point, which is, out of all the faiths, Catholics are the ones that do have like an executive head to it. And like any other institution that has an executive head to it, they are the ones that are targeted, whether it's for good or negative. And especially in comparison to the other Christian denominations that don't have an executive head. So it's easier to attack the Catholic because he kind of stands out in comparison to the other denominations. There is no singular individual you could really go after who's like a representation of that faith in and of itself. And you can even see from Steve's comments there too. It's clear that even all Catholics have disagreements about some of how the Pope's carried himself and the political nature of the inside of what's going on in there too, with him being a liberal Pope versus like the conservative Catholics. It's this crazy kind of conception too, because it shows how unaligned we are even inside of our organized religion. But yeah, I would just say in the end, RIP to Pope Francis, and I do truly hope that he repented in his last moments and asked for forgiveness.
Certainly. And, one thing's for sure about that is, the whole Vatican. Well, not one thing's for sure, but, speaking of the Vatican, I wonder, does the Pope, I assume he has access to all the treasures of the Vatican, right?
I would assume so.
Man, I wonder what kind of relics they have there under lock and key that, historical things and just everything that kind of goes on. I'm fascinated by all that type of stuff, and I just watched this special from Michael Knowles where he had a guest that has a replica of the Shroud of Turin, and they brought in a guy that has a replica of the face covering. I can't remember what it's called.
The burial cloth.
Yeah, the burial cloth. There's two. One's like the full sheet, like the burial cloth of his whole, Jesus' whole body is the claim, and then the other one is just a head rag, a head wrap thing or whatever. And I just think
the one that had the coins on it.
No,
like coins on his eyes or something like that.
No, it was just like a head wrap. They were saying that they think it was being used to keep the blood from coming out of his face whenever they flipped him over on the cross or whatever. So they wrapped his head up, and then they do the body covering or whatever. But I'm just fascinated by these ancient, biblical relics, things like that. And I wish they would open up the Vatican would open up their vault and let some TV producers come through there with cameras and say, look at all this cool stuff we have, because I think they got some stuff in there that has probably been forgotten over time and would just be cool to see. But anyways,
there are a bunch of claims like from other faiths as well that like the Vatican like is hiding specific like documents and scrolls and other things like that like would, it depends on what side of it you are. Some would say like this disproves the Catholic faith, like they stole, these Islamic relics, or they stole these Jewish relics, and this would actually disprove the Catholic faith, and they hide them in the Vatican. And then there's others of like the there's things in the Vatican that would disprove Catholicism, and that the true church is the Orthodox Church. And depending on which side of the aisle you're on, there's all these claims that there's like all these hidden treasures under the Vatican that are all like deeply tied to like Christianity. Yeah.
I don't know what made me think of that, but I think it'd be cool to get access to see some of that stuff. So we're going to move on to the next story. I don't know if you guys know this, but just briefly going to talk about WrestleMania was yesterday. And I just want to point out that the new, men's WWE World Champion, John Cena, is following your boy here on X.
Funny.
I don't watch wrestling, but I grew up being a fan of the guys. I was in like the Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage, Ultimate Warrior, Undertaker, the Giant like kind of era, right? Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and got into it a little bit in the late 90s. And every once in a while, around WrestleMania time, I can't help myself, and I have to tune in. So I spent like 8 hours watching wrestling yesterday, and a few hours watching it the night before, and it was fun. And eventually, John Cena ended up winning the world title. So just had to brag that you can't see me is following follow me on X. That's stupid.
Funny though.
He follows so it shows that he's following 1 million people. But hey, I'll take it. I think it's cool.
Right.
Yeah, Roddy Piper.
I was actually surprised at how well he made a transition over into Hollywood. I mean, I would argue he's a better actor than The Rock. I mean, I think The Rock's kind of cringy in a lot of the stuff that he's in. But
I just watched a funny one with him the other day that I didn't expect would be so funny. But go ahead.
Well, I was going to say his I think it's the Suicide Squad when he's with he's the Peacemaker. It's like that's the way he plays. And I don't know if it's the first one or the second one. I think it's the second one. But I think one of the greatest scenes in that, I think it was a really good movie. I like that movie.
Second one.
But I thought the second one. And I thought one of the best moments in it was the actual, like the true American guy. And I can't remember what his name is, but he's also another prominent guy. He plays a lot of roles. And they're fighting in the basement. And that's when John Cena shows he's actually going to betray everybody. And they break that pipe off in the basement. And John Cena sticks him directly in the chest, twists it. And obviously the other boy's not going to make it. But that iconic line, if he looks at the guy in the American drab, there's this like Peacemaker on it. And that famous line, he looks at it, it's like, Peacemaker, what a joke. And then before he dies, it's like one of the greatest things, because he's an antagonist, but the way they did John Cena's character was super good. I like that development in Suicide Squad.
Yeah, he was a cool character. But I just recently watched this movie, Ricky Stenicki. I don't know if anybody's seen that, but it's got what's his name? Dang it, I'm drawing a blank on his face. Zac Efron. It's got Zac Efron in it, and it was actually really funny. I think John Cena is actually a pretty decent actor as well. I didn't really want to go down a whole John Cena rabbit hole trail, but I just thought it was funny. Since he won yesterday, I had to point out that it's not every day the WWE world champion is following you.
Right. That's awesome. I actually forgot he was following you. Sick, though. It's probably what his last post is about too, right? Winning WrestleMania or about to go to WrestleMania.
It looks like he hasn't actually posted. Oh yeah, he did WrestleMania memoirs. Looks like he posted before the match. So, anyways, I know that's stupid, but I had to talk about it because it's funny.
No, it is funny. I know we were talking earlier about how today is today was a slower news day, and it was, but I would say I think what is shaping up to be the most, what's the right word? Yeah, he did. Yeah, he's on politics pretty cucked.
I think he learned Mandarin to apologize in their language even. But yeah, he did do that, Evil Elmo.
But I think the biggest news story of the year is actually what's going on as it relates to this hit job with Pete Hegseth. So the next story getting brought in is SignalGate 2.0. Now, this also apparently occurred in March too. But the gist of the story is that once again, Pete Hegseth was caught or suspected or allegedly was using Signal Chat and leaked more military plans, strikes, in particular, the airstrike schedule for an attack in Yemen to a group of people that was meant for administrative purposes. Supposedly, this chat that he sent these messages into was a chat that was built during his confirmation process and has his wife, his brother, and a few other people, but was meant for administrative purposes as an organization around what happens next now that I got confirmed, where is my office, etc., etc. And the story is once again Pete Hegseth making a big blunder, people calling for his resignation, so the thumbnail is. Now, the story is actually not that. The story is that what we've seen over the last couple of weeks, stemming from the first SignalGate that involved Mike Waltz and a few other individuals, such as J.D. Vance and other individuals from the cabinet, is that there are reports, and increasing reports and concerns, that there is actually a civil war happening inside the Trump administration as it pertains to what Pete Hegseth is in charge of. And that would be the Secretary of Defense. This relates, and what we're seeing is that people are arguing tremendously over what to do with Iran. And that seems to be what the war is being fought over. Now, whether you want to say whoever it is, doesn't matter, neocons, whatever. The reports from what we're seeing, and we have many different takes too from many different pundits that I threw here in the outline, is that it seems to be, and we're seeing, and I forget the name, it's like Dan Caldwell and a couple other individuals have all been fired. So they're firing a lot of Pete Hegseth's guys. You had a fake story that was dropped today by NPR saying that the search has begun for a new Secretary of Defense. There is a clear push to try to get Hegseth out of this position, and I think it is largely hinging upon the fact that he has been radically de-escalating the tensions and the willingness to go to war with Iran, and instead trying to find more peaceful negotiation attempts to deal with this issue instead of going to war. And whoever is on Mike Waltz's side of the team is clearly wanting to push for the full-scale war, which many people believe would pull us into World War III as it relates to the relationships that Iran has with other BRICS nations like Russia and China. Now, there's also other individuals from Mike Waltz's team that has been getting fired as well. But there's now a running theory that what Mike Waltz did purposefully by adding Jeffrey Goldberg was to begin this process, which would turn the ire towards Pete Hegseth in an attempt to begin to publicize these blunders in a way that would make people feel like Pete Hegseth can't be trusted as the head of the military. Now, for as it relates to all the takes, I wanted to highlight some of the other individuals' takes on this too, to get a more broad perspective here. But here's where we'll start with this. There's one from Jack Posobiec, and I'll go ahead and make sure I just share my screen here. I'll put it on screen for you guys. We're just going to go through this person by person and their individual takes on how they have been perceiving this. Now, if I can get this to work with me, I'll put this on screen. Hopefully mine's I wish mine would scale better like Worlds does, but it doesn't. But
yeah, I don't know why it does that. But
I'm going to zoom in actually too. Is that easier to see for everybody? Let's go one more.
There you go.
Yep. So this is Jack Posobiec. Now, Jack Posobiec is saying Deep State is trying hard to bounce Hegseth after the Iran story dropped last week where he helped stop World War III. So obvious what they're doing. Now, Dominic Michael Trippi, another independent reporter, said that Pete Hegseth was against strikes on Iranian nuclear sites. The neocons and establishment brass were furious. First, they came for his subordinates, Dan Caldwell, etc. Now they're coming for him. Total power grab by the pro-war neocon faction. Mike Cernovich also came in. Someone I don't like all that much, but he came in and said that Mike Waltz was confirmed as the person who added a neocon never-Trumper who lied about Trump into the group chat. Somehow, Pete Hegseth became the target, revealing this is about installing people who want World War III into the Trump administration to betray his base. Now, AF Post has a more broad one here, saying that the civil war is brewing in the Trump administration over how to handle Iran. Witkoff, Vance, and Hegseth favor a diplomatic approach, while Waltz, Rubio, and others want to aid Israel in a joint strike against Iran's nuclear facilities. Now, Matt Walsh even coming in, and he says, I loved the Pete Hegseth pick initially, but now, after seeing this unrelenting campaign to smear and destroy him, I love the pick even more. We all need to rally around him. This coordinated hit job cannot be allowed to succeed. Now, for a bit more harsher takes on this, I'll bring in 9mm SMG, who says Hegseth is being attacked because he wasn't on board to bomb Iran. It's that simple, and I can't be convinced otherwise. And then the last one I'll add in here before going to a secondary take is from Harrison Smith, host of InfoWars. He says that Israel is attempting a hostile takeover of the American military because they are desperate to attack Iran in this window of opportunity they created by eliminating their proxies. This is the biggest story on earth. If they succeed, it's World War III. Now, we have a lot of individuals who seemingly are just not in the news as much, right? They're not, and sometimes can't even blame them, right? News cycles is a lot of just trash, and it's a lot of like negative stuff. And so I find it increasingly hard to blame people for not paying attention. Ultimately, though, obviously, I think if you're not paying attention, it doesn't matter because politics cares about you. I think it's clear that the majority of the conservative base does see and recognize that there is some kind of establishment push to take Pete Hegseth out of his position. And it's clear that the majority of them do view this as a warmongering attempt to do so, a bloodthirsty attempt in collusion with some of the individuals who are already in the Trump administration alongside the media to help build and fabricate as many possible smears as they can on Hegseth to prevent him from being in a position of power so that someone else can be installed to ultimately be in the ear to say, yes, let's bomb Iran. Now, it's notable, too, because if you think of how, when we were approaching with the confirmations, Hegseth was the one that was fought against the hardest. I mean, they even dropped the fake sexual assault story. They were going balls to the wall to attack Hegseth. And then when it came to RFK and Tulsi, they said some things during the confirmation hearings, but they weren't dropping smear pieces on them like crazy like they did Hegseth. And so I think it was clear that they were much more concerned about Hegseth getting in, which I think showed their hand on what their priorities were in regards to what they wanted to accomplish the most among who they could, influence on being inside the administration. I think ultimately we're going to probably get, hopefully, a good conservative defensive. Hegseth will stay in. I think ultimately attempts are going to fail. But I do think at large, though, most people who aren't privy to the way that the inner workings happen, they're just basically going to see that Hegseth now for the second time is like, la-di-la-di-la, like, yeah, we're bombing Iran today, guys, da-da-da-da-da. Like, and I sent it to 10 people who I shouldn't have. And I think on a base level sense, people see that and they just might be concerned overall. As much as we know the fake news is a thing, they might just overall get on the train and say, yeah, Pete Hegseth should probably go. Didn't he leak all this information? Without realizing to the extent of which is being fabricated, much like the Russia hoax collusion. And now I think what we're going to get for the next couple of weeks, as we have gotten for the last month or so, is instead of Russia, 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 here is Hegseth, Hegseth, Hegseth. And it's all specifically because I think, and I believe personally, that their goal is to escalate the tensions with Iran out of peaceful negotiations into full-scale war. Because obviously, whether you contribute it to neocons, military-industrial complex, that's just the current breakdown that I see happening with this story in particular. And I think its weight is heavy because if you look at Harrison Smith, I agree with that. War with Iran will lead to World War III. And I am just like Dave Smith. That is like the one thing that Trump cannot do. I think it will annihilate a good portion of his legacy. We have to avoid as much as possible of going into a full-scale war at what he cannot run for a third term that may force us into a conflict in which Trump steps down and then we are forced into a position we are deciding on a president during a wartime event. And I think that would be a terrible, terrible way for America to enter or be midway through a conflict with somebody.
Oh yeah, definitely. Especially with Iran being backed by, Russia and China via the BRICS alliances. There's a lot of pressure on China right now through Trump's tariffs, and I don't know how far they would want to go into supporting, excuse me, Iran with this, but either, it could either push them over the line one way or the other. Technically, you know what I mean?
Right.
And I don't know. It's just an interesting, and it's definitely a brewing up of a potential World War III. And I agree with you that if the United States were to go to war with Iran, it would be bad.
Right.
just simple. It'd be bad. No, it would actually especially considering what's going on in the Middle East already, and then everything that's going on between Ukraine and Russia. When the entire world, when the majority of the world's highest powers are all engaged in war, I mean, it's basically a world war, rather, regardless of who they're at war with, or if they all relate or not.
Right. And actually, to go into more detail, I think this quote tweet from our nationalist is decently solid as well. But he writes again that last week Hegseth helped convince Trump not to attack Iran's nuclear facilities, and that days later he's fighting for his job after a fresh scandal emerges. Are the two things connected? Maybe. So he goes into analysis, as he wrote an article, it looks like there, for InfoWars. Now, I do think you still have to, obviously, I think there is obviously, soft power, hard power. But what caught my attention too was the fact that Joe Casper, who is the chief of staff for Hegseth, was actually dismissed, I believe, either this morning or yesterday at some point, which is now another person knocked down the line from Hegseth. And that actually, even before this story took off, there was another story that involved, I believe his name was Dan Caldwell, because Dan Caldwell became the fall guy for supposedly another leak that occurred. But that story didn't stick as nearly as much as this one was when you're targeting Hegseth directly. But ultimately, it still led to the firing or the releasing of multiple people that Hegseth had brought in to surround him amongst his wing of the administration. And, I think it's clear a lot of the people who are on the progressive left are also very extremely, anti-Israel, because they're all like Marxist, cultural Marxists for the most part. But Max Blumenthal had even put out, and I'll throw him in here too, which I think Max Blumenthal is a smarter individual, but I don't agree with a lot of his positions he takes. But he says that the New York Times actually reported that Hegseth was among Trump officials opposing the U.S. launching a massive war on Iran on behalf of Israel, and that 3 Pentagon officials have already been fired for unknown leaks. And then he adds here at the end, he says, Israel lobbyists are now calling for more firings over the leaks that led to this story. It's a lot to take in, just because, again, I'm sitting here at the very end going, how does this decrease the price of eggs in America?
Mm-hmm.
How does this make America a more Christian nation? How does this, again, it's like, what the actual F are we doing? And even more so, I don't know if it was Statista or if it was the Pew Research Center or where I'd seen it from. But the majority of men, when asked, I think I came up with the age range was about Iran. The majority of them basically responded like, I'm not going to die in a foreign war for Israel. Which I think is a very, very, that's different than like saying, I don't want to go to war. It's like, now they're saying like, I don't want to go to war for a country that's not my country. And I think this speaks to part of the reason why we even saw like Tim Pool take the meeting with Netanyahu, as much as you may disagree with all the reasons why. I think it's clear that the pro-Israel side is watching their public support dissipate. And I think on those grounds, similar to what we see with the polling, with a lot of individuals seeing how this is playing out and why, and their perspective of what the Iranian conflict is shaping up to be something. Now, what that something is, I don't know. I'm terrified of false flags. I'm terrified of something just happening out of the blue that would just like that lends our leaders to say our hands were forced, guys. We just had to.
Mm-hmm.
I overall don't appreciate it, and I'm just very dismayed at the fact that we get our new wars president in office, and it looks like we're fighting tooth and nail for the administration to not push for him to go to war. Mm-hmm. And I kind of just harken back to what we originally had issues with when it came to the confirmations and the appointments in the first place, which was like Trump should have just not cared about the process and got all of his guys in regardless. Playing this game led back to the same issues we saw in 2016, which is a lot of red tape and a lot of people who are stabbing him in the back who don't have his interest, let alone the American people's interest at heart. And now we're back in a similar situation with where we were in 2016, which is not a lot getting done and a whole lot of talking. And like, I just don't like the parallels that I'm seeing. Give him some time, obviously. And I think it's good that we called it off. And I think even against, what maybe people say we're controlled by Israel, right? The fact that he went against the wishes of Israel to bomb the nuclear facility, it at least shows that there is a level of which, like, he's listening to Hegseth and JD over whoever else you may claim that, is controlling America. It's just not a good look. This is terrible optics, and largely because of what the consequences would be. And that would be World War III. I mean, there's no way that China doesn't step in when Iran is their foothold in the Middle East. And there's no way that Russia doesn't step in either, when, again, they have a large economic deal with Iran as it pertains to like oil and such. And the consequences are just awful. And I just, again, I'm asking, can someone tell me like what does your average American citizen get out of this is like what I'm asking, and no one can answer that question. And I think that's where everything falls flat on its face, which is like, let's just not be involved at all.
And, I think of my friend, our friend, Dan McKnight, when anytime we talk about, potentially going to a new war, will Congress actually declare war this time? If that's the case, if we're going to it, is this going to be a Congress decision or not? Which is kind of rhetorical. I think the answer is obviously no. But, it's something going back a little bit. They definitely want to drive a wedge between Trump and Hegseth, simply because that's what the left has done. These Democrats have done to Trump historically, and anybody that's, been close to him in his first term, anybody that was around Trump, they, used the Russian collusion excuse to essentially stick a telescope up everybody around Trump's ass and try to figure out anything that they've done in their entire history, whether it had anything to do with Donald Trump or not, just to make these people's lives miserable. For them to say, you know what, it's not worth being this miserable to be associated with you, Mr. Trump. I'm sorry. I just have to bow out, right? For my family's sake, I just can't continue supporting you or whatever, right? And that's how they treated him the first time. This time he had stronger people around him, Elon Musk, Pete Hegseth, and we've seen how they've tried to, drive the wedge between Trump and appeal to, his gotta be the boss mentality, right? Because that's a projection that the left has put on Donald Trump, that he's this dude that's gotta be in control. He's a narcissist. And so when we go out there and say that Elon Musk is the real president, that'll dig at Trump and get a reaction, right? And so they're trying to appeal to the thing that they have labeled him, right? Which didn't work, thankfully. Trump has been pretty steadfast with his support from Elon and vice versa. And we're even seeing that with Trump and Pete Hegseth here. And we even have, do we still have it in the outline? I might have accidentally deleted it, or you might have moved it around, but we had, Donald Trump came out here and said that he's in full support of Pete Hegseth and what he's doing right now. And Caroline Leavitt actually,
yeah, that's what I was going to go to, because Trump said that in response to the fact that the NPR went with that entirely fake story about that they were starting to look for a replacement for Pete Hegseth. And so Trump came out and backed them. And I don't have the exact quote from Trump, but I did see that post from Caroline Leavitt as well. I believe she actually quoted the NPR article in what she had said, what she said. But that should have been in the trending aggregate, but I can find it from Caroline. I had the video pulled up of him actually addressing it head on.
Oh, okay. Well, you still have control of StreamYard here, so if you wanted to, I was just looking. I was thinking, where's that video? I should probably get ready to stage it, but I don't see it anymore. I tried to add it to the outline at the very end, but it gave it. Did I put it underneath?
Oh yeah, you did. Underneath the
tab?
conclusion on the outline. From Nick Sortor.
Oh yeah, there it is. Okay. I was
Yep.
expecting it to be over to the left a little bit further on its own little tab. And
Right,
I messed that up.
Yeah, we'll play that video. I'll play this one then, and you switch and you take over and you'll play that one.
Okay.
But here's this one directly addressing, and I'll go back out, from Benny Johnson, that he shuts down the fake news media targeting him. But here is the clip.
You know, what a big surprise that a few leakers get fired and suddenly a bunch of hit pieces come out from the same media that peddled the Russia hoax. Won't get back their Pulitzers. They got Pulitzers for a bunch of lies. Pulitzers for a bunch of lies and on hoaxes time and time and time again. And as they peddle those lies, no one ever calls them on it. See, this is what the media does. They take anonymous sources from disgruntled former employees, and then they try to slash and burn people and ruin their reputations. Not going to work with me, because we're changing the Defense Department, putting the Pentagon back in the hands of warfighters, and anonymous smears from disgruntled former employees on old news doesn't matter. So I'm happy to be here at the Easter egg roll with my dad and my kids, because, you know, this is what we're doing it for. These kids right here. This is why we're fighting the fake news media. This is why we're fighting slash and burn Democrats. This is why we're fighting hoaxsters. Hoaxsters. This group, no, this group right here, full of hoaxsters that peddle anonymous sources from leakers with access to grind, and then you put it all together as if it's some news story. And when we know it, we know exactly what it is. So I'm really proud of what we're doing for the president, fighting hard across the board, and I'm going to go roll some Easter eggs with my kids. Thank you very much.
That was great.
Yeah, that was awesome. And good. We need more of that. We need more of that. The direct confrontation of the media.
Yeah,
and it's
exactly.
good. And
called them fraudsters and fake. He didn't call them fake news, which was funny. Called them fraudsters and gave them some new names.
Right. Wasn't it funny that the same news media that freaked out and lost their minds because he had Christian nationalist tattoos are the same ones who are, you know, moaning that Abrego Garcia is being deported because of his tattoos. Right. It's like, yeah, no principle, no consistency, just whatever draws clicks, whatever destroys the country from the inside out, whatever self-aggrandizes these sad, soulless, depraved reporters. It's what they do. It's what they get off on. I'm beginning to think that it has to, at this point, it has to be like a sexual kink or fetish to just be like the most depraved people on the planet. Because how could you continually be involved in hoaxes, smears, and just the fakest news reporting the world's ever seen and have any self-esteem whatsoever?
Right. Well, playing the victim goes a long way with those folks.
Right. I mean, at this point, it's like they have to get off on it. Like they were loving it. They're like, oh, look at Hegseth get mad at the fake news story we made. Like, oh, I feel so good.
Right.
What, like, why are you doing this? Like, no, I get it. Like, obviously, evil persists, but at the individual level, it's like some people have to know these people, right? Like, who raised these individuals? Like, what? But again, not shocked whatsoever. But it's clear they want him out. Like they want someone else installed because the neocons, whoever you want to say it is, they clearly want war with Iran. They want us to be involved overseas. They want to continue the forever wars, and we can have none of it. So I agree with Matt Walsh. Like we have to throw our support as much as we can behind Hegseth, because man, if that's what's at stake, yeah, I'll start campaigning for Hegseth like on my YouTube videos every other day. Like, because F that, dude. Like I'm not, and I refuse it. I'll ignore the draft. I won't support the military. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm not going to support another forever war in the Middle East. Refuse it entirely.
Right. So I'm confused here. Actually, I'm gonna derail for a second. I just had a notification on X from Jamie, and I don't know if this is actually. I'm following you, and you follow me back. You're followed by Atlas, but I'm wondering if Jamie had her X account messed with, it says Biden on her wall. Okay, you did that. Okay. Like, what's going on here, Jamie? Is that you that's messaging? Okay.
So Biden
Okay.
supporter, huh?
No, I see now. My bad. That threw me off, Jamie. Okay.
You voted for Biden. Go to Iran.
She tagged us in a post, and I can't see what she's responding to. So that threw me off.
Oh,
I thought she was asking us, what is the CIA telling us to do? Like, no way Jamie thinks we're a CIA.
Oh, she probably saw the NPR story.
Yeah, that is it. It says at NPR, what the hell are you? Yeah, that's it. I see now. I'm not I thought I was an expert on X. It took me a second to put that together. I'm like, wait, wait a minute. What's going on here? I thought we were friends, Jamie. No, I got it now. Yeah, you can screenshot that and put it in the Discord.
That's funny. No, I thought it was funny. I got it when I read it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry.
But yeah, you had the. Is that what
Jamie.
Caroline Levitt's talking about? Is Trump backing up Hegseth despite that fake story?
Yeah. And I have that right here. I can put this on the screen. So anyways, moving forward, Caroline Levitt confirms President Trump is standing by Pete Hegseth despite the fake news efforts to oust him. Quote, the president stands strongly behind Secretary Hegseth, who is doing a phenomenal job leading the Pentagon. So we'll just go ahead and hear it from her mouth directly.
The president stands strongly behind Secretary Hegseth, who is doing a phenomenal job leading the Pentagon. And this is what happens when the entire Pentagon is working against you and working against the monumental change that you are trying to implement. Secretary Hegseth was nominated for this position because he is standing up for the war fighter, the men and women in uniform who are putting their lives on the line to protect our country and our homeland. And unfortunately, there have been people at that building who don't like the change the secretary is trying to bring. So they are leaking and they are lying to the mainstream media. We've seen this game played before. The secretary is doing a tremendous job and the president stands strongly behind him. The president stands.
Cool. So that's what we need. We need to, as long as they're actually doing a good job, but we need them to stand together and not be divided in Trump's cabinet. So
this is why Anomaly goes so hard over Trump and Rubio, especially when it comes to like the Miriam Adelson connection. Trump famously made fun of Rubio, saying that he gets dog walked by the Adelsons because they donated money to him, only for the Adelsons to come in with $100 million donation to him, like 4 years later.
Yeah,
but it's true. It's like I think it's clear this is what happens when you let other people tell you who you should help staff your administration with, and you end up with half of these people. It's the Clint Russell thing. It's half of these people said America first so they could get a position of power, while the other half said America first and meant it.
Right. Well, I'm beginning to think that a lot of the pundits are saying America first, and they're hoping that the Democrats get their shit together so they can go back to being a Democrat later on. I don't know. It's just this weird sensation that I keep feeling when I watch the, these MAGA pundits, these current Republican pundits speaking, and I'm just like, are you just waiting? Are you guys just trying to be on the right side of history right now for a paycheck and really not putting out a principled position and hoping that the liberal Democrat figures their shit out so that you can go ahead and jump ship back because you're technically still a Democrat? I don't know. I'm seeing it more and more amongst people, and I'm losing faith. Maybe that's me just blackpilling myself. I just don't.
Easy to do.
It's just like, dang, dude. Like, really, I don't know if I can watch this person anymore. And I'm not going to name any particular names because it's just me. Well, I have mentioned Andrew Schultz before and Joe Rogan, but I think that's kind of obvious. But other than them, I think there's more folks. They're the ones that got me kind of focused on the subject, which was like it was last time Andrew Schultz went on Joe Rogan's podcast. I was just listening to him, and it's like, man, they're really actually rooting for the Democrats to figure their shit out. It's like, I don't like that.
Right.
I don't
Well,
like
this
that.
is-
Just let's just go with the not freaking evil narrative and move forward.
So this is a common thing though that like I've saw a lot, and I think it kind of represents like what James Lindsay entire group is like when you look at him and Constantine Conan, and you look at like Douglas Murray's, and you look at like Seth Dillon, like that whole group is seemingly hell-bent on just that, which is it's clear that when the Dems behave as progressively and as awful as they do, what's waiting on the other side of another cultural Republican victory is more Christianity. And I think that's what you see is with a lot of these guys who, like Ian, Andrew Schultz and the Joe Rogans, and I think partly why Joe Rogan's had a lot of Christian individuals on recently, like Wesley Huff, is because it's clear that that's what's waiting on the other side. Like if people continually don't get their stuff together with, as it pertains to like the degenerate progressive ideology, people are going to flock towards Christian, like the Christianity, like the Christian populism. And I think that strikes fear in the hearts of the Joe Rogan and the Andrew Schultz types who are more likely to align on the side of the freedom of religion, even though like that's just a joke. Same with like James Lindsay, Constantine Conan, and that the conservative pundits who are in the arena of gatekeeping. That's their prerogative, is ensuring that you make sure you're leading the conservatives so they don't fall into the Christian bucket. You know, we want to get, and as they famously say, right? I think even Ashley St. Clair had this famous quote where it's like, yeah, you're right. I'm not a conservative. I've never been a conservative. I'm a 2012 liberal. I just want to go back to 2012 liberal policies.
Mm-hmm.
And that video was floated around during when people were digging up stuff about her when it was exposed that she was originally like sex laptop and had all these really weird and slutty things that she had said and done in the past. I think that's a fight on the other end when it comes to just even Republicans at large and just the conservative base as well, which is, are we going to be like fiscal conservatives, or are we all doing the whole conservative thing? And I think you can see that schism play out, as I suppose it pertains to geopolitical stuff as well too. But it's clear that the Christian right is growing and they're gaining ground rapidly.
Right.
And I think that's what these guys fear, is they fear that if the right wing continues to gain momentum and power, that liberal facade of 2012 liberalism, and we just go back to everyone kind of minding their own business, is going to be off the table. And we will go back to things when there will be social shame for like degenerate kind of products and graphic things that some of these guys might find funny and would use for comedic talent, would now be threatened if they would even be allowed to do these things at all if you live in a more Christian society. And maybe not a matter of like legality of like you're not allowed to do these things, but also on the same the same kind of idea that if the people are more Christian and they say, hey, we don't actually like what Joe Rogan did there, we thought it was a little vulgar, and maybe not wanting to be open to those kind of criticisms and fearing what happens when you do move the Overton window that far to the right, like it once was 100 years ago.
Right. Sorry, I just deleted the windows we were sharing by accident. So we'll have to re-add them to the stage here. I was trying to type and I didn't have the cursor in the box, so I started doing shortcut keys. Thankfully, I didn't end the stream.
Right.
Apparently, Control S takes this stuff down from the stage.
Well, the more you know.
Right.
The more you know.
I was just trying to say, what's up, Mad? Good to see you, Mad News. John?
Oh, what's up, Mad News now? And I do agree with Tix. I think that's what I heard that idea, I think, floated the most from Ian Crossland.
This one right here?
Yeah, I think we should have the right to dictate what programs our taxes go to. You want to steal my money? I want to say and where it goes. F teaching transgender Pakistanis how to put a condom on. They're never going to use. And that was floated by Ian Crossland, and obviously he always adds like the extra stuff that makes the idea seem untenable, which was like all the open source stuff, but basically like an app that would let you know, like, that would track your tax dollars. And then it would show you, like, in a local and maybe a regional level of, like, here's where the tax dollars currently are going to. It's like, where do you want to send your tax dollars to? You know, and it's like, if you paid this much in taxes, it's like you can send all your taxes to this industry, or you can send your taxes to there, and kind of like a democratic system of it. Although I think there's some obvious pragmatic issues there, which is like, then what becomes the point of electing the officials to then have them oversee it if the people are just ultimately going to decide what policies to send their money to? And then it goes, you're beginning to look at a much more of a basic democracy than you are a republic of better men, as republics are designed to be. And so as much as I agree, I wish that was the case. I think pragmatically, it simply wouldn't function inside a republic, at least not in a way that I can maybe drum it up in my mind.
Right.
All
So
F4.
I was reading. What's that?
Yeah, you said wait till you find out what all F4 does.
What does it do? Do you know?
Yeah, well, show the class. Don't do it.
What was it? Refresh the page?
No, it'll close the program. Whatever active program you have on, if you do that, it'll close the program out.
Okay.
Yeah, which is where that meme comes from, where it's like, press F4 to pay respects.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, because people, when they rage out, right, when you're raging in a game, all F4, like, I'm done. Just closes the game out, right? It's like a very common thing, like people when they rage out in games, especially PC.
I didn't know that. My bad. I'm a boomer. Yeah, right. John, Mad News Now says no money overseas unless we get a profitable return. 100% agree with that. 100% agree with that. It's got to make sense. It's got to make sense for us to do that kind of crap in the future, in my opinion.
If you're asking Elon, he's like, I'll fight this war, but as long as I get 1 million Indians in return. Like, that's like Elon. Like, no. I mean, I'm just against it entirely. Like, I don't want profit. I just don't want to see American men die overseas in a desert, like, not on their home turf. Like, I just don't want to see any more of that at all. When
our homeland isn't at risk, or at least by the folks that we're invading.
Right. And I think we need to, on that same note, same thing we were seeing with, like, all the trade negotiations and, like, with the tariff gate. I hate saying that because I'm saying the left's lingo, because of all the tariffs that Trump put out. It's the same way where I think we need to make sure that we take a good look over of who our allies are, all of them, from Mexico to Canada to everywhere else, and we look and we go, is this alliance worth it? Is it actually worth it to us to have an alliance with you guys right now? What are we getting from this alliance?
Right.
Is this a defensive alliance? Could we count on you guys even sending 100 soldiers to help us in a defensive battle? Do you contribute any ounce of, trade to us that's actually beneficial, that we couldn't reproduce ourselves or manufacture here in ourselves and be independent of? No. All right. No, guess like you're an enemy now. We're canceling our contract. And good luck, because we're the American Empire. So, make the wrong move, we'll have a forever war on your turf too. I just, like, to me, it's like we have too many allies with too little benefit. We're the world's wallet, right? And to that end, until that fixes, it's like, yeah, nothing overseas at all, period. Bring everybody back home. It's pointless.
Right. Exactly. Especially now that we can send a drone or a missile or a jet. And, I think Trump's even talking about sending military satellites into space if we don't have them there already, which, Trump put out I don't know how to even word it. He put out a warning last week talking about dropping missiles and laser attacks from satellites from space. What was it? It was just last week. I'm forgetting the details, but I thought it was a rather staunch warning, and I think it was actually Tim Pool that was talking about it, and he was mentioning, like, look at what we've developed in the 60s and the 70s. We've obviously been developing things for the last 50 years. What do we really have? And is this Trump alluding to the fact that we might have some really sick weapons. You know, so, I think they were even talking about time manipulation and other things. So, yeah,
Right.
you know, not getting into the whole space laser started the fire in Hawaii scenario, which will always
Right.
I think on my mind will always go there now every time I hear space lasers. But you never know. It might just be a matter of time, especially with Trump and Elon being so buddy buddy. You know, and I know SpaceX does launch things into space that are classified. You know,
Like
they
women.
usually will say that we're launching this many SpaceX or not SpaceX, but satellites for his internet, Starlink internet, you know, whatever. That's what this is for. That's what that's for. And then some of the launches will be like, nope, this is a classified mission, blah blah blah. And it's like, ooh, we're doing something cool in space now. But
Right.
Trump, of course, you know, he started SpaceX or not SpaceX, but Space Force. So you know, he probably wants to use it.
Well, what's cool about that, and I think the parallel I'll draw from it is, what's the idea of going to Mars? We want to colonize it.
Mm-hmm.
And the same way that I think if we're going to do anything foreign related, if we're going to have to go overseas, we're colonizing you. You lost your right to be a sovereign nation. Clearly can't defend yourself. Got to come over and take you over, make you a vassal state. But the issue I have, though, is that what we've been trying to do with our colonization efforts with the soft power is, instead of spreading what I would like to do as the American prerogative, which would be spreading our way of life, which is capitalistic systems, republics, democracies built on the framework of Christianity, we don't have that. So instead, our forever wars is just pushing a bunch of nonsense, a lot of $1 million worth of camo armaments that would never be worn. And we don't do anything besides just like destabilize regions and cause even more war. But if we change that, and what I could get behind would be like, you know what, this portion, this area of the country is literally a parasite. It demands money from us all the time. We've given you guys this many billions of dollars over the last 40 years. You qualify as being our vassal state. You either comply, you become part of the United States in some form, maybe not the direct attack, annexation, but in some form, you become part of the United States. And then now it becomes an easier idea to digest that we're giving money to this area in the world because it's part of the USA. Not that we're sending money to a foreign sovereign nation that doesn't have anything aligned in our values or morals, has no regard at all for Christianity, doesn't give a shit about installing a republic or a better system at all, but wants to continue doing what they did that got them there in the first place. That's where the issue is. So if we went from the Star Spangled Banner and we started waving that around along with the Christian nationalist flag, and we went flag, and we planted that. Yeah, no, good catch. And I planted that in the middle of the Middle East, and we go, hey, this is America now. This is a Christian nation. Then I would support dominating and colonizing the rest of the world. But until that becomes the actual prerogative behind it, it's like, no, it's pointless. We just send American young men overseas to die for wars that elitists and billionaires profit off of.
Right. And then makes a new enemy, just like what JB said earlier. Yeah. And then it ultimately just makes us the bad guy, makes a new enemy. Yeah, it's just what's in it for me, man? What's in it for my kids? I don't understand
it's like, yeah, we're going to take it over, guys. I brought the 10 commandments. We're going to hang them in that room over there. We have 1,000 Bibles to start handing out to you guys. Start reading them. We're going to start baptizing people immediately. Anyone who doesn't want to get baptized can't be part of this country. Get out. And then we would see how much people really wanted our support, right? But what it really is it's like a lot of money with no responsibility. And when would you wouldn't even give a child $100 if it didn't come with the expectation that they should be responsible with that money, right? But here we are doing it with fully been in place for century nations. Like, I don't see it any differently. It's like we need to have control over it, or just don't do it in the first place.
Yep, I hear that. Bring them home. What did he say here? Jay said, a true Atlas, our government is creating forward countries that depend on us and is effed up. Yeah, it is. Right. Part of that I think is maybe trying to preserve the oil, what the dollar, whatever. But I don't know. I think that might just be an excuse.
Well, it'd be it's easy to
A
uphold the dollar.
strong economy with you know, that is exporting energy is going to be a strong economy exporting energy, regardless of if you force the other countries around the world that you can control on your dollar or not, right?
Right.
So,
Well,
I don't know.
I was going to say it's easier to uphold the dollar when 50% of the world's America.
Yeah.
And then we wouldn't have to worry about doing all these things. It's like,
Well, then that's why they
American.
hand out cash to these other leaders and shit like that too, is because then those people that now have all this cash want it to be valuable. So then they have a self-preserving interest in making sure that this cash that they have is valuable still, rather than passing a policy or whatever, doing a deal off of that dollar, you know?
Right. Right.
The CIA, bad news says the CIA took down 23 Democratic countries that are no longer Democratic. Yeah. Well, a lot of people think that, you know, Saddam Hussein was keeping a lot of those little countries in little cells in check. And then once he was out of there, created a whole new mess. You know, when the cat's away, the mice play type scenario.
Well, it's the same thing with Assad in Syria.
Mm-hmm.
He was really the only thing that was keeping the factions from the Christians and the Islamic forces from like outright like taking each other out. Literally, the moment he's deposed, flees to Russia, nonstop videos being uploaded to X. Well, here's 14 more Christians who were drugged by the back of a Jeep for 18 miles while their limbs were ripped from their bodies just for the simple fact that they were, you know, practicing Christians.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, wow, we did really good job over there, guys. And, you know, and there's even, that extends further to the fact of like the fact that the gas striking, that everyone's like, Assad gassed his own people. And it's like, literally no evidence. It's like never been really truly produced out. It's one of the more highly debated things still. There's evidence that speaks to the opposite of that. But again, all those things being done to destabilize it did the same thing with these leaders, right? Paint them as like these just super nefarious villains who all they want to do is just kill everyone that's in their country. That doesn't even make sense. And that's what we do. And then you push the sentiment over here in the States. Everyone's like, yeah. We should send our good old boys over there and go blow some sane people up. Let's go do it, John. Mm-hmm. And that's what they do. They paint this picture, this narrative. They make it Hollywood. It's like a Disney story. It's like, wow. And all the little princesses are just like, please, Assad, do not gas us anymore. They're like, America, we have to go save them. And in reality, like Matt New said, the CIA was over there destabilizing, funding these terrorist groups, funding this, you know, freedom movement over here, just so these people would have enough resources to make it in far enough to kill as many people as they did. And it's just disgusting, dude. Like, mm-hmm. And like, as someone who is extremely patriotic, you can separate the American people from the American government, and then you can even separate the American government from the intelligence agencies that dictate half of what the government does. Mm-hmm. And being able to separate those and say, yeah, one of these has led America to be an extremely outside existential evil, that it becomes hard to blame Russia and other countries that look at us and go like, yeah, I would want nothing to do with you guys. I wouldn't even trust you guys as far as I could throw you. The moment we bring one of you guys in here, we're gonna have a CIA agent who's funding one of these, you know, crazy cult groups in Russia. Next thing you know, we got 4,000 guys with rifles. Where did this come from? Mm-hmm. That's what America does.
Right. And somehow those rifles look like the ones that were built in Kentucky. Right. I don't know. I just threw a state out there. But
yeah. Yeah. You know, man, what's the one I'm thinking of? Raytheon, you know, manufactured by Raytheon, made in Pennsylvania. Like, here you go. It's so disgusting, dude.
Right.
And you know, that's what they did in Ukraine as well. I mean, it's still insane to me that we know for a fact there's literally only one nation capable of firing a sub-nautical missile that deep to strike a pipeline to cause that much damage, and it's us. Right. And everyone's like, man, who bombed the Nord Stream pipeline?
Russia did it themselves.
What? Like, yeah, right. Russia did that to themselves.
Why would they do that?
Yeah, I know. It's so retarded.
Like, we as Americans understand the ramifications when a Biden administration shuts down a pipeline, but yet we're gonna act like Russia doesn't understand the ramifications of blowing up the pipeline that they spent, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars, whatever, billions of dollars building. I don't know, stupid.
Right. Right. Exactly. And the reality is they get away with it because most people, when they interact with their news, which again, our government's made up of not, imagine if like our government and what happened in politics was made up of only people who watch 2 hours of YouTube a day on politics, right? You might have a whole different, system going on. But the reality is like you have everyone gets a vote, even though this person might have only seen one clip of Trump in the last 4 years. They still have an equal say as someone who spent their whole entire time watching it. And these news, and same with the Pete Hegseth story, they get away with it because the average person it's the escapism. The average person generally does as much as they humanly possible can to never have to talk about politics with another human being on the face of the earth. Like that is what the average person tries to do. Because not only is it toxic, they might say one thing and be like, oh, I'm getting canceled. I just lost my job. That's crazy. My wife divorced me. I didn't even say that. And like, that's why, and they get away with it. So the media can say the stupidest, retardedest things and get away with it because everyone is fighting for their lives to not have to pay attention to it. And it's just the sad reality. It just ends up in the abdication of responsibilities and duties.
Sorry, I'm coughing over here. Still dealing with this bull crap. At least I got this mute button.
Right. Then you hear like the old man hacking, like like you're struggling for your life to breathe. Like those old men coughs when they're like 70 years old.
Yeah.
And it's like, is he about to die? Like, what is he coughing up, dude? Like a hairball in there?
For real.
Yeah.
For real. Hey, Evil Elmo says, guess I'm not average. I like messing with the Reddit idiots. Yeah, I use Reddit for like information for my chickens. Like our chickens is one of my favorite things to do on Reddit is just scroll through and find out what issues people are having and just learning about potential issues that I might encounter. None of which that I've seen on Reddit included a chicken that suddenly just can't walk and how to deal with it.
Right.
Old Buffy back here.
She's still alive?
Yeah. Yeah, she's still alive. She's right there. I don't know if you can see her because of my name here.
I don't think so.
There
now
she
I
is.
see her.
She's sitting there.
You might need to check on her. She didn't look alive.
She's all right. She's all right. She was just making sounds a minute ago. But yeah, her little feet, her little legs don't work as much. Don't work anymore. So
right.
I don't know. It's one of those things where I don't want to deal with it. I like her. Although I didn't.
You're gonna put on like the black robe too, and you're gonna cut the eye holes out. You're gonna take the executioner axe.
I know, right?
This is how we're doing it.
Fix Bomber said, "Don't be talking shit about base chicken." She hails from Bouillon. Yeah, she's all right.
She's fighting for her life in there, man. You're gonna get a special guest appearance here.
You hear?
Yeah.
I was giving you audio proof of life.
We got proof of the life of the chicken before we got proof of wife.
Yep. Well, with all these freaking swattings nowadays, shoot, it's like self-preservation. Maybe you shouldn't proof of wife.
Right. Yeah. I'm
Next
just waiting.
train, chicken is in world's chair. Yeah.
You just stand off camera and talk while the chicken sits in the chair the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Stares directly into the camera.
She flops around every once in a while. She tries to walk and gets frustrated and can't. The chicken needs a beard. You know what's funny, Evil Elmo, is I have some roosters. Well, I have chickens, actually, hens too. They're called Americanas, and they have sideburns and beards. And one of my roosters, he has like a straight up like Viking pirate beard. It's completely different color from the rest of his face and everything. I'll take a picture of him and put him in and put it in the Discord, the pets area in the Discord. Which if you guys are in the Discord, we do have a link that you guys can click in the description and join the Discord. Gunther Eagleman just joined the Discord this afternoon. We're gonna have to figure out if it's the real guy or not. I am highly skeptical. But hey, is what it is.
I know. I'm gonna have to figure out how to like vet accounts actually to
Mhm.
figure out how I can look up more information on these people.
Mhm.
But yeah, there's like no way to even like figure out if it's the real person or not.
No,
All I can really pull up is like basic information on Discord,
right.
and I'm like, maybe you did see one of our videos, right? And you followed along,
Mhm.
jumped in.
Never know.
But there is
I'll DM him on X and say, hey, why don't you come on the show? Speaking of
Yeah,
which,
right.
I'm gonna try to get I'm gonna reach out to Dan and see if he wants to come on and talk about the whole Iran proposition that's going on.
Yeah.
I think you'd be a good source for information for people that don't know the ins and outs about how Congress is supposed to declare war and all that.
Right. Which I'm sure he's not too happy with the idea that Hegseth is getting a hit job put on him.
Yeah.
And directly undermining, obviously, what Trump, who would like to be in office there.
That kid is still facing 10 years for doing the burnout on the road rainbow flag. It's bullshit. That kid is in Florida too. I think it was over
Dylan Brewer. He follows me on X.
Oh, okay.
He told me that after this trial, he would come on and talk with me about it. But this trial's been going on for like 3 years now.
Damn.
I actually reached out to him the day after it happened.
Oh, wow. Well, stay in contact with him. Maybe we can have him on whenever the trial actually does come out or does wrap up.
Yeah, well, I went to bat for it because I thought that was in and of itself such a big statement of that story is like, look what your blasphemy laws are. Like they told you that there's not blasphemy laws in America. Yeah, wait till you say something about a gay person. Wait till you burn out on their gay homosexual pride symbol.
Mhm.
Yeah, then they're going to treat it as if like, back in the 1800s, like you were making a potion, like it's a Salem witch trial. Like that's how it gets treated. And that goes back to the whole reason why I push for Christian nationalism, which is it's not a matter of do you have religion implying your morality that implies your laws, or do you not? It's a matter of which religion does your government get its morality that implies its legislation from, or informs its legislation is better than imply. I should have said inform. But that's a phenomenal example. And he's like, what? He's like 19 years old too, I believe. He's like he's got his whole life ahead of him, and they're trying to destroy it. I mean, if on a felony charge too, I mean, this would I think in Florida he has a bit different, right? He will be able to vote again in Florida, right? After he serves a sentence, but he won't be able to own a firearm and all the other kind of regular things.
So is it a federal charge? Evil Elmo asked if it is state or federal charge. I assume it's a federal charge then, right? They're trying to take away his voting rights. LOL Marble and Andrea both asked, what does swatting really mean? My interpretation, and correct me if I'm wrong, Atlas, it's just the SWAT team is the team that goes in. I haven't looked up the actual definition, but from what I understand, it's just when somebody calls 911 and there's an emergency, like hostage situation, or a dozen things, potentially that it could be bad, and it requires immediate attention at this residence. They send in the SWAT team, right? And it's an attempt, in my opinion, to by the swatter, the person making the phone call or whatever, to essentially get the homeowner killed by police, right? We saw just recently when Owen Schroyer was swatted, he had to crawl backwards from his front door all the way out to the street without a shirt on. He was basically in his boxer shorts, had his phone trying to film it.
Yeah.
A very dangerous situation. A cop sees you holding your phone, pulling, you're putting your hands in your pockets is enough. Sometimes, to trigger a cop to not feel safe and act. And so, it's one of these things. It creates a high tense situation, and it's pressure on a person to shut up. You know what I mean? They want to silence you, and it's a fear tactic. It's a terrorist tactic. It's literally terrorism. by the definition. And so it's just it's a crazy situation that we just kind of can't you can't just remove that scenario from the way we police, because sometimes people really need help immediately, and that's what the swatting is for. But unfortunately, political enemies use it as a weapon against, political people use it as a weapon against their political enemies, and apparently most people get away with it because of the process that they use. I'm not trying to help people do it or tell you how to do it or anything like that. I don't even really know, but I assume a VPN is probably involved.
Yeah, well, they do a lot of things to like
spoof,
spoof where the call is coming from, and then what they've been doing recently, when I've looked into some of these, is actually what they'll do is they have a number. This fake number will call this fake number, that calls this fake number, and that fake number calls that fake number, and then that fake number, when it's triggered, has a preset generative AI speech or voice that activates once it hears the audio coming across on the other line. And so, I mean, back in the day, swatting was, somebody would just make a call and it would be a fake call, right? And it would be, and the main point was very high intensity. The call, it's like they're about to do it, like he's got it, he's about to do it, like I'm about to die, please, you have to come right now, please. Or like someone's in a hostage, they're about to do something to her.
Right.
Very high, like high intensity that triggers the swatting to come in. And because when the SWAT team shows up, they just start kicking in doors, and that leads to a lot of obviously fatalities, like what World mentioned. Somebody like gets freaked out, they're not expecting it to come in, right? And we've seen instances too where like guys have walked outside, it's happened to, they're holding an Xbox controller, cop thinks it's a gun, boom, guys, it's gone, he's over, he's dead 2 seconds later. And the new generations of these, so there's like 2 different variants that's happening. You have what's happening to or what's been happening to the native patriot, which is like a secondary form of swatting, which is the spamming, which is his location. It's more of a dox, really, but it's an active dox where his personal information, his number, and his cards credit cards might have been leaked. And what they do is they literally just like they spam as many kind of like deliveries to like pizza places, DoorDash, Uber Eats as possible. So his phone is just going off nonstop. He's being called nonstop. It's like his door is being knocked on every 10 minutes because a new delivery driver is showing up. And like we had discussed last time, which I think DoorDash will probably change after all these instances, is that you'll have all these people are waiting to be paid because they would have selected the option like pay upon delivery. And so all these people are physically there, like they're getting angry. They're like, what do you mean? They don't understand. A lot of the time there's foreign born individuals because it's a lot of the delivery matrix now. They don't understand what's going on. They're confused. And native patriot was going,
and they're all hitting up his phone saying, yo, I'm here. Where are you at?
Right. And then they were telling the onus is on him to cancel all these out. And it's like
DoorDash was.
Right. And can you imagine too, like, everybody uses their phones throughout the day to get like work done or like be in contact with their family. And then, your whole day kind of ends if you can't even use your phone because it's getting frozen by the amount of times like you're getting text and called and notifications from apps. Like, so that's kind of like the secondary form. Now, the third form, when it's meant to be extremely lethal, is what they'll do is they'll provoke it with the delivery calls to ensure the individual's at home. And then they'll do the actual SWAT call, which is once they confirm the person's home, they see the orders were canceled, they put in their name, then they immediately go, this person's here. So they do the actual swatting, and then an hour later, a SWAT team comes in, blows through your door. And, and there's really no solution to it either because of how they're using the VPNs and they're spoofing IPs and they're using AI to do it. And they're having robocalls on robocalls on robocalls and a chain of command of different calls happening that, even in the famous case with Tim Pool, like it took them like it was like a year and a half and they still don't even think they got the actual person. And same way with all these other swattings, like no InfoWars guy was ever caught. None of the ones that happened to Chase Geiser or Owen Schroyer. Even the one that happened with the quartering was like an 8-month thing. And it's like we've gotten like one person out of how many stories we've had of swattings happen in the last like 2 years.
And I think that that's still even questionable if they got the right person. So who knows if they've even got that one. It's pretty crazy scenario, and unfortunately, like I said, it's not just a system that they can remove from the police department. It's like, oh, it's being abused. We need to just nix this, because even Native Patriot said himself, like, look, it's not something that the police can get rid of. The system that the police can just simply get rid of, because people do have emergencies where they really do need help, and so the SWAT teams have to take it serious every single time, and there's ways to work around it. A lot of guys like Tim Pool, Native Patriot, even did this himself. Call your sheriff. They call their local police department. They call their local sheriff, and they say, "Hey, look, I'm influencer in the political arena, and I'm sure you're aware of what a swatting is. Just letting you know, I could be a potential target." And then they set up like, if you have security, like Tim Pool, he talks about this a lot. So he has a security team that he pays, and if he ever gets swatted, now at this point, the police call his security. His security say, "No, look, I'm standing right here." They all know each other too. You know what I mean? It's, the security, the police, these in the same area. These folks, they're rubbing shoulders at some point, so they all kind of know each other, know of each other, or whatever, for the most part.
Right.
And so they're like, "Yo, you over here?" And they're like, "Yeah, everything's fine." Okay, and then it just goes away, essentially like that. But it's requires people's time. It takes away from their real job on the the security side of things. And then for folks that aren't as fortunate as Tim Pool, that you can't have security on call all the time,
yeah,
they show up at your door. You know what I mean? And then you just have to deal with it. And excuse me, we learned during the what was her name? Breonna Taylor?
Yeah.
Is that what it was? Yeah, when Breonna Taylor, the no-knock raid that, BLM tried to rally behind, her boyfriend actually shot one of the swatters, one of the SWAT team, as they broke into his house. It was a no-knock raid. It's also dangerous for the police department. A lot of people are reaching for their firearm, and if somebody comes blasting through the front door, comes kicking down the front door, I think that's a natural reaction for somebody to reach for their self-defense device. And that's when the moment of
gets muddy,
of truth happens. You know what I mean? And even in that Breonna Taylor case, her boyfriend shot the cop in the leg, and he didn't get any charges because he was legally allowed to defend his home in that manner. So
yeah, well, Rand Paul was actually staunchly against the no-knock raids after the Breonna Taylor case. And I think even like not body cam footage, was it CCTV footage showing the cops like in the alleyway? Like it's just like a bunch of like random incoherent yelling. And when you're watching it, it's like, I mean, you put yourself in those shoes. I mean, and the thing is, it's like, yeah, her boyfriend was like a drug dealer and like should have went and go into charges, but it shouldn't have played out like the way that it did. It's just like the wrong way to do it.
Right.
Because it ultimately did end up in Breonna Taylor's death, which she did ultimately. You can't I don't think you could posthumously get charges, but it was found out that she was actually helping distribute for her boyfriend, which was like the drugs, which I think was the arrest warrant in the first place, which is why they had it.
Right.
But ultimately, it's like, with no-knock raids, it's,
a no-knock raid isn't necessarily a swatting, but it's very similar. It's just, well,
it's the same environment. It's like,
yeah,
you have no warning, your door gets kicked in, what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of, Rand Paul poses it, and I think on the same grounds, which is like, if that were to happen to me, right? And like, if I'm like, I wake up from sleep and I just hear banging on the door and yelling, like, I'm probably going to come to the door with a gun in hand, because I'm going to be like, what the heck is going on?
I've done that, and it was my neighbors, and then I felt bad. Like, oh crap, I'm sitting here, I'm armed. It's just my neighbors. It's a little late at night, but
yeah. And then you get freaked, and the next thing you know, now they have probable cause to put you down because you came to the door with a firearm. And it's like, it's one of those things that it too heavily weighs in the favor of cops at the cost of undermining people's constitutional rights. And so that's why I think most people begin to be against no-knock raids, even though the contents of that context with the story of Breonna Taylor, like, you wouldn't have defended otherwise. It was only on the mechanics of how the no-knock raids operate, which is like, these need to not be a thing anymore. And they were in plainclothes too, I think, on top of it. It's a plainclothes no-knock raid. So even if you would have looked out your window, it'd have been a bunch of guys in like hoodies.
Right.
It's like in khakis. It's like, what am I? And even at that, it's like, how much can I even see out my window?
Yeah.
And then on top of that too, how much can I trust that this person is a cop? There's a
Right.
famous Ring doorbell camera that went around, and I saw this on one of those compilations where it's like top 5 scariest videos or whatever, where this dude literally goes up to the door and he's got a gun in hand, and he doesn't realize there's a Ring camera on him, but he's like banging on the door and he's like, "Sanford police, open up," because the guy was trying to rob the people in this home. But he was
Right.
doing it very accurately. He was like, "Sanford police, open up."
That was a
Sanford
big thing that
police.
went on in my neighborhood, in my town, whenever I was growing up in high school. And these dudes were dressing up in full police, going to people's houses and robbing them, tying them up, robbing them. So
Right.
yeah, it's even in police gear, you know what I mean? Even in police clothes. Crazy thing is, it ended up being the neighbor across the street from my dad's house that was doing it. They came and busted him, and found out later on that it was all those dudes over there that were doing that crap. But
Right. And I think of it too, like with the right, like with self-defense, right? Like you as a person, it's like you have to have the fact, you have to be able to prove that there's a reasonable perception of an imminent threat to your life. Whereas these no-knock raids, it's like there's no imminent threat. Like the people are sleeping at home. You don't have to, right in this moment, arrest this person. Like you can try coming in the morning.
right.
I just don't like how close we get to like how much should we violate rights, even though we know this person might be guilty. It's like it sets too many bad precedents. And I think overall, I
Was
think
the
even
presumption of guilt.
yeah, even with the presumption of guilt, it's like I don't think you don't know who's in that house. You don't know if kids could be in there. Say if you're not even monitoring the place too.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is we're not supposed to presume guilt. You know what I mean? And it kind of goes in. Their approach comes with an assumption of guilt, and they're not supposed to do that. That's supposed to be determined in court. I get it. They have judges sign off on things and work around the legal system and everything like that. But it's, it's a fine line between showing up fully armed to somebody's house, waking them up when, not everybody sleeps clothed. So, you know what I mean? You wake up, you're groggy, you're dealing with all that type of stuff, and then you're supposed to have a clear head and deal with it. When, to your point, they could have showed up at 7:30 in the morning when most people are getting ready for work, or 6:30 in the morning or something like that, and had some kind of courtesy, or come in the afternoon in the daylight and be transparent. Also be fully geared up in police outfits, which is something we've kind of gotten into here in the past, as well as, be very clear who you are and what you're there to do, especially when it comes to these type of things. It might be a little different if you're going to pick up an illegal. I am with, I think it was TNT. I thought about that, and I am, if they're picking up an illegal or something like that, maybe they need to protect themselves and not look so conspicuous. But I don't know. As long as they get him out of the country, I don't care what they're wearing.
Right. No, I get that too. But I do have to take off. I think, were you planning on keep going?
No, I think I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up, dude. My voice is getting a little bit worse as we go here, and I don't want to push it too hard. I want to make sure that I don't do what I did last time and prolong my sickness any longer than I need to. So I'll probably just go ahead and wrap it up here with you. That's why I didn't push for us to jump into any of the other topics or anything. We just kind of BS'd here for the last little bit, talking with chat and whatnot.
Word.
Let's see.
Put the chicken on. Stick around for that.
Put the chicken on. Stick around. All right. Well, I'm just gonna leave the stream up. We're gonna put her in the chair, and we'll see how that goes. Okay. Tim Pool has Chicken City. I got Chicken Office. No, but it's been a great show. We got one of the best chats, as always. We got one of the best chats on YouTube. I love you guys. You guys make the show fun. I love when you guys ask us questions and interact and all that stuff and add to the show. One of these days, it's going to be a huge show. I'm going to have to look through all the busy comments so that I can make sure I'm reading the comments from my favorite people, and that'll be you guys.
Right. Yeah, we're getting there, man.
Yeah, but yes, and also I just want to say thank you to everybody that's been, showing the love to the new channel and watching all the videos and everything like that. Been real impressed with the numbers that we're getting on the Jar Openers podcast channel. It's almost comparable to my main channel, America First TV, which is amazing considering we're talking about a 29,000 plus, gap in subscriber count. It's been awesome. We're on the right track, and you guys are the ones that are helping us. Let's see here. It's just a chicken in a chair. You have 50 subscribers, 50,000 subscribers tomorrow. Yeah, that's whenever you just give up on life, right? All the effort that you try to be, a little bit entertaining, a little bit knowledgeable, informative, fun, and then you just put a chicken in the chair and it just eclipses all the numbers. That's right. The OnlyFans. That's the male OnlyFans cheat code. You got to have a chicken that can stay in the chair. And
why is it when I walk away and put a plank of wood in my chair that my viewer count goes up? And I come back and the viewer count drops. Do you guys seriously prefer a plank of wood to me? That famous moment from that streamer girl was hilarious.
That's funny. I didn't know that happened.
Yeah. Oh, it's hilarious. It's one of the best clips I've ever seen. You can see her viewer count when she leaves to go to the bathroom and puts a plank of wood in the chair. It goes up. And then when she comes back, it drops by like 8. And she's like, are you serious? Just prefer a plank of wood to me?
That is hilarious. That's good stuff. So anyways, we will be back on Wednesday, and you can catch us on the Jar Openers podcast channel, also on X and Rumble, and that'll be at 7:00. And we'll probably try to go a little bit longer. As you guys know, we're trying to build up the Jar Openers channel here on YouTube, and even with an extra 15 minutes on the show, with everybody watching, that helps us get to the monetization goal. So everybody's sharing, everybody doing everything that you guys are doing. It's just so great. It's real encouraging. And I appreciate you there, Andrea, for saying you hope I feel better. I hope so too. I got a big concert coming up in a couple weeks that I want to be healthy for my birthday. And, so hopefully I should be fine by then, a couple weeks, but you never know. Yeah. But with that, you got anything you want to say before we dip out?
Yeah, just expect clips on the days that we're not live. At least trying to at least do 1 a day, 2 a day if I can get to it. Also expect me to post videos on all of our off days as well. Like that'd be like Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. And so even in case you missed the whole show, I try to at least clip out good portions of topics that we covered. And it's pretty much it. Christ is King, and I'll see you guys on Wednesday. And no war with Iran. Yeah,
100%. No new wars. That's the mandate we set to Trump. So you better listen. I know he's watching. Anyways, he used to show up in chat, but I haven't seen him for a while.
That's right. Yeah,
remember that guy?
Yeah. Crazy. Still got that name. Maybe he got taken down.
Yeah, maybe he might have. But anyways, guys, make sure you check out Mad News Now. Chris Stockham, Dirty Money, all guys, good guys out there working, trying to build the channel and build their channels in this content or in this arena as well. All that good stuff. So anyways, we'll see you guys on Wednesday.
Have a good night, everybody.
Christ is King.
With war rolling and with dog, we here to bring the truth. Jar open this podcast, we breaking through the fake news. They try to silence us, but we won't be subdued. We're bearded alpha males here to save the youth. Spitting fire on the mic with our bass Christian takes. Exposing the lies, keeping the demons at bay. We ain't afraid to speak up, we won't be swayed. Jar open this podcast, where the truth is laid. Jar openers, cracking open the lies. We're rolling Atlas up, we're here to rise. Bearded alpha males saving the youth from the godless demons, spreading the truth. We ain't playing games, we're on a mission to awaken the masses with our intuition. Pulling out the corruption with no inhibition. Jar open this podcast, sparking a revolution. We're not afraid to stand tall in a world full of deceit. We're the voice of reason, bringing light to the street, keeping it real, never missing a beat. Jar open this podcast, where the truth meets the heat. Jar openers, cracking open the lies. We're rolling Atlas up, we're here to rise. Bearded alpha males saving the youth from the god. truth. Your Openness Podcast, where the truth will never cease. Join us on the journey to bring back peace. We're rolling Atlas thugged, fearless in our release. Your Openness Podcast, where the lies will decrease.